All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aware Athlete Show. Today, our guest is John Lawyer, and he has not only a fascinating but a very meaningful story to tell. He was in counterintelligence in Kuwait and Afghanistan and Iraq, and uh, and he had a very, very intense experience there, being over in that area for over 6 years straight, and put in an amazing number of hours doing his job, over 100 hours a week, which is, how many hours are there in a week? Let's see, 140 times in 28, about 168, something like that. So I hope you had time to sleep at all and eat.
I sometimes I always had time to sleep and eat. Sometimes I would basically just go to sleep, wake up, do it again. Sleep for 5 or 6 hours and then get up and do it again. I was really dedicated to my job. I was really like all in kind of thing.
Yeah. So what kind of a toll did working that many hours in that high uh, intensity situation take on you?
It definitely took a physical toll. I think it took a mental toll obviously as well. So I mean, there's that um kind of when you're in a boiling pot, it comes up slowly. You don't realize it, right? So there's that aspect of it that
Yeah,
you look around one day and you're like, man, I'm completely toast. I'm burnt out. And that was me at the end. The lack of sleep, the kind of always going and always flipped on mode. Um, really messed up. Not just from a mental health perspective, but it also messes with like the physiological biochemical makeup of your brain
yeah,
and how you respond to stimuli and or don't respond to stimuli in some aspects. So it really messes with all kinds of stuff inside of you.
yeah. So neurologically and emotionally and all of that, you were pretty well drained. And what state did that leave you in? And what state of life did that leave you in?
Well, when I came home, having been there all those years, I mean, out of the first 15 years of my adult life, I spent 12 of those years out in and out of deserts, right? So, um, I was lost. I didn't really have an identity. Like I was in my, early to mid 30s and Uh, I didn't know who I was outside of all that because I had been kind of a quote unquote. I thought I was an important person, not in like this egoistic sort of way, but like people needed to know what I thought and did, and you know, I thought I did important work. And I have a different frame of that now, but so I was lost. I was just like kind of wandering uh around for I would say 7 years. It took me to kind of like get my feet back under me.
Yeah. So working that many hours, you're basically in a situation, besides all the pressure, you're in a situation where you're thinking about what other people want you to do all the time. And
Yeah, my job was such that I had to always be right. I was in a job where like I sent men and women out on missions and I coordinated missions and operations and picked targets and it was all a very dark military industrial complex thing, So not being able to be wrong ever, it also creates this like
oh,
this edge,
terrible.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this edge that you get on.
So uh, actually, spending all that time with your focus on this thing here, it becomes your identity, wouldn't you say? Or yeah,
Yeah, you get totally lost in it, right? Like it's like I you don't really know anything else and you don't have time. There's no free time for like hobbies or reading or even introspection really, right? So there's limited opportunity for development and growth as a person. So like I kind of popped out of all this. I joined the army straight out of high school. And then once I get home, I'm still a kid in a lot of respects, you know.
yeah, yeah. So you don't really have the opportunity in all that time to wonder what your real identity is.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's 100% true.
yeah. No, you got married in Afghanistan or Iraq?
Yeah, Kuwait. My first
Wait, okay.
when yeah, my wife and I were in the same army unit, and uh the army, as it does, she had volunteered to stay in Kuwait after a drawdown of troops there, and I was staying, but they sent her home even though she volunteered to stay. So we decided to get married, and we've been
Ah,
married for 20 years now.
cool, cool. I was married for 51 years. As you know, every relationship is not absolutely perfect, but
True.
there was a sense in which it was. It was so beautiful to be married all those years.
Yeah, it's a finding a person that you can kind of like completely share yourself with is a very kind of a unique, amazing thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, yeah, there's more ways I miss her than I would have ever known.
Yeah.
uh, but so your wife, now you were in counterintelligence. What is counterintelligence?
Basically, in essence, where our job was to stop people from spying on our country.
Ah,
So other nation states, terrorist groups, was also to go out and collect intelligence from humans about the world. And if we found someone that was spying on us, to not necessarily stop it immediately, but to use uh, some methods of manipulation to cloud the issue and create a fog on their side based on passage of information that may or may not be true, um, to manipulate that situation.
that's the world is so complicated right now. Now, did you work on local issues because you were stationed in the Middle East, or did you work?
I Yeah, for me, I worked stuff that was like high level, like nation state type stuff and regional, like country versus country or regional stuff, all the way down to that was in mostly in Kuwait and Iraq. And then when I was in Afghanistan, I worked at a very like immediate tactical level. It was more like talking to people on the battlefield and uh keeping a base. We were on a strategic base, Kandahar Airfield, and keeping it safe. So it was a much lower level thing in Afghanistan when I was there.
Ah, okay. The internet has really complicated things. Uh, I appreciate it. I mean, you can learn anything on YouTube now, and
Yeah.
I'm old enough to know when you couldn't do that. It was hard to come up with the information to do something. But
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
there's a newspaper cartoon that came out several years ago, and it was these two kids back in like the 1980s or 1990s sitting on a bench, and one of them asked a question, the other one was like, "Well, I don't know," and then the conversation was over, and then showed that same conversation in the 2000s, and it was like, "I wonder what," and then the other kid says, "Well, I don't know," and then they look it up on the internet, and then they know they have their answer.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the world's changed a lot.
it has, and the internet is so much used for manipulation. I'm sure other countries, things that we're kind of aware of, China, Russia, they are using the internet to their advantage all the time in terms of our country manipulation. But even industries will
Oh
spread
yeah.
will spread false information in order to continue to make a profit on their product, which may or may not be good for us or the environment or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's a huge tool for manipulation, very complicated.
Yeah, I talk about that from time to time that you know there's all these things in our life that we kind of understand are these big complex things like the military industrial complex or like this other stuff, but then we don't really look at like that Madison Avenue advertising marketing machine, right? That
Mm-hmm.
has turned wants into needs or turns one opinion into a different opinion. And I think the internet is this great thing, is this amazing thing when we have the sum of all human knowledge in our pocket. But it is a great opportunity for organizations to uh, use it to their advantage to change people's minds in ways that people aren't even aware that those their minds are being changed, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Uh, Unfortunately, it is not often used for real authentic dialogue from the heart.
No, I love that you talk about that because like that's one of the reasons that my wife and I and our friends started our nonprofit online spiritual community because we thought there's got to be space for authentic, meaningful connection in the digital world. Like we have to make time and space for that. And even on social media, there's the algorithm that you're fighting against. But at the same time, you have certain choice about what you consume, about how you put yourself out there to people. Are you being kind? Are you being loving? And all those things. So it's about, I think we have to be more aware and intentional about the choices that we make as well.
Absolutely. So, what, if you don't mind, whatever you want to say about this, but uh, your wife, I assume, was not in counterintelligence.
She was an intelligence analyst
Oh,
and
okay.
she was assigned, her whole career, she was assigned to counterintelligence units. So she was kind of,
Mhm.
uh, the brain of the operation a lot of times, like where she would take the counterintelligence information, she would take, signals intelligence imagery, like uh, other intelligence methods that we have for collecting and put it all together for stuff. And she worked on that her whole career, and that was her thing.
Now, when you when you get into the military right out of high school, how did you get into counterintelligence?
Well, I knew I wanted to be in intelligence, and so I didn't know exactly which field. And so when I went and took the test, and the guy up at the recruiting station after I took the test, he's like, "This job specialties came up," and he's like, I know a guy that did this, and he's like, "I've never seen this come up on my computer for to offer someone before," and he's like, uh, the guy I knew, got to wear civilian clothes and go do surveillance in malls and all kinds of like training stuff. And he's like, you should take this job. And I knew that it was, I knew what counterintelligence was because I read a lot of Tom Clancy growing up. So that's kind of how it happened.
Ah, so it, like most things in life, it just happened. Yeah, and
It
that's
just happened. Yeah.
now. How did your wife? Did she have a similar test and a similar situation to get into that?
She was older. I joined her out of high school and she's about 8 years older than me. And she had done her bachelor's, she had done she got her master's in library science. And so she was older, more educated, and she knew she wanted to do like intelligence, something in that realm. And that's she joined also to pay off some of her college and
Yeah,
all that. So that's kind of how she ended up in the military.
she's how many years older? 6,
8.
8 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were in the Middle East, you worked with her more or less the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, all those years, all those years in Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan, in and out, we were together, stationed together, all but like 2 or 3 of those years. So yeah, we spent 10 plus years side by side in the desert, doing the job.
Ah, ah. So what what did uh, what did this job and the whole high pressure situation over there? What effect did it have on your wife? How long were you over there before you got married?
We were I'd been overseas for over a year and a half by when we got married, and that was in Kuwait in 2003. It was after the invasion of Iraq had kind of ended and was uh the actual kind of like day-to-day war part um had been done, and now they were settling into the occupation. And so that's when we got married. And being, I guess, being overseas and being in that environment together, I mean, we worked really well together. There, we had our moments, like you said. Everybody has their moments,
Sure, sure, yeah.
in 20 years, but overall, we get along really well. It's nice to be able to have a job, and sometimes you want someone to be able to do something for you and ask for help on something and know that it can get done. And that's very rare, right, in some of our jobs. And I always knew that she could be that person that would, if I asked, hey, can you help me with this? Can you do this? Like it would get done, and it would get done really well, you know, and that's, I think, this magical thing.
Yeah, it is. So, uh, so you were burned out. At one point, did she get as burned out feeling as you were?
I think we were both done. Yeah. I think that towards the end, having been over there for over 10 years, 11 years, over on and off for those first 15 years from 2000 to 2015. Yeah, we were really just completely burnt out. And I think we were both pretty broken human beings when we came back home.
Yeah. So you came back home, and what did you do immediately?
I didn't do much. Because I had done so much for so long. Like I was kind of in shock of like I tell people cars had changed, like the body styles of cars had changed in my time away. So, you know, like that's how different the world was to me.
Ah,
Um, I cooked a lot of fresh food because like we were always eating like stuff out of cans or, you know, processed. So I cooked for I think for about 6 months, I just cooked like made from scratch everything. It's about all I did. And I knew that I was broken. I had some concept of that. I knew I needed to heal. I didn't really know how to start or do that. So for the first like 5 months, I didn't really do anything.
just what you needed, probably.
Yeah, it was for sure needed. And it was, like I said, it was hard to because I was kind of addicted to war. People don't soldiers and people who are at war don't talk about it very often, but there's a journalist and a writer. His name's Sebastian Younger. He wrote The Perfect Storm. He wrote a book called Tribe and War. He spent 18 months in Afghanistan with a unit out in a forward operating base, a fire base, and he wrote about how he did a TED talk, a main TED talk on it, where soldiers get addicted to war. You get addicted to the adrenaline. It's like professional athletes or extreme athletes. You know, you get addicted to that lifestyle and that way of like excitement. So I was also, you know, essentially going through withdrawal, having been kind of a war junkie. I don't, you know, mind saying that now because that's what it was.
Yeah, yeah. So what are the what would be a life defining moment after you got some rest, you cooked some better food, fresh food, which you really needed. You know,
I had,
the rejuvenation period. What what would be the life defining moments that uh, I don't
yeah,
know,
I had a couple.
that turned the light on for you? Yeah.
My first was I went to the VA, the Veterans Administration, and I got paired with a therapist there that practiced Eastern modalities and like mindfulness meditation, and she did hypnosis, and that's pretty rare in the VA. So that was kind of like its own little small miracle. And I wasn't really prepared at the time to completely accept that and wrap myself around it, but there was enough. It helped me enough that it made a big difference in my life, even though I was still pretty broken after and messed up. It started something, that pebble rolling down the mountain, you know, snowball rolling down the mountain uh
Mhm.
situation. So that was the first thing I think that happened.
Yeah. Okay. So meditation used to be something. Go back a few decades, and it was esoteric, and it wasn't something we thought as much about. But there's been so much research on it, you know, brain
Right.
research, and that it's getting much more accepted, even as a treatment in, you know, traditional hospitals, and I don't know if it's a treatment, but a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, it
Uh,
absolutely. It's becoming way more mainstream now, which I think is a great thing. You know, our Judeo-Christian society is finally accepting Eastern practices as
yeah,
valid.
yeah, that's a barrier.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that got you started, and what did that produce in you? What did that? How did that help? And did your
I
wife actually participate in that too?
She did do some meditation as well, and she did some work with a therapist as well. And for me, it produced, I think it showed me that there is a way to peace, there's a way to calm. Like there is a path, maybe. I didn't realize, I wouldn't realize until years later when I kind of had my spiritual moment that we're always on a journey, whether we know it or not, right? But at that point
That's right.
now, I had at least some like esoteric idea in my mind, probably that there is this path to calm and peace.
Yeah. So what is that moment that you mentioned that was years later?
Yeah, so that was a couple years ago now, and I was laying in bed at night. It was late. My wife was asleep, and I had this kind of moment of like bolt of lightning. Like I call it understanding and clarity. People call it awakening. You know, people call it a lot of things, but
Okay.
the world made sense. The universe made sense. I felt this oneness and connection with everything. This very pantheistic that we're all one thing, universally. It was a very loving kindness kind of situation. Everything made sense. And I also understood what my higher purpose was, or my dharma. I understood that I was here to help people help themselves, like find their light, even if they didn't know it existed, and find that they were whole inside, even if they didn't know it. And that I should go create something where people could kind of share their journey. I could share mine, and I knew that that's what I was here for.
So I'm sure that you weren't the only one that came back from Afghanistan and Kuwait and Iraq kind of feeling burned out or having some real inner need to meet. Now you have a community that you founded called the Kishar
Yeah,
community. Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. Now, does that particularly help people who have been veterans or have been in Afghanistan? I don't think that's your purpose, to confine it to that. But
No, it's not. I felt that I just wanted to help whoever were, if I could help anyone under, and because I don't think any trauma is better or worse than any other trauma, right?
yeah,
And so I felt like if I could help anyone get through their difficult part of their journey or path easier than I got through it, then maybe that would be a good thing if I could help them help themselves. And I also felt strongly that I feel very good about what's happened in the last 20 years with veterans and how much support they've gotten and how many programs are out there and how many
yeah,
organizations are committed to that. And so I felt like I feel like we have a need for the general population to kind of be able to walk a spiritual path and understand that there's this alignment of mind, body, and soul that we can have, whether you're a driven professional or you're a stay-at-home parent. There's space to know who you are spiritually and that it will help you out in all facets of your life.
yeah. I I like that because, like you say, no trauma is really any worse than
Right.
any other. Excuse me. And looking back, some of the most difficult times in my life were simply because I couldn't understand. I couldn't find any purpose. There were some times like that for years, and or you felt stuck and trapped in something that wasn't you. Uh, that kind of thing. I think just in general in our population, we have to have an awful lot of that going on.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up because I mean, I one of the things I most focus on is higher purpose or dharma. What is our higher purpose? Like I think we each have this individual higher purpose
Mhm.
that's unique to us, and how do we? And I think it could change through life. And some of us kind of know what that is. I think some of us may know it but not realize it, and some of us might not have an essence of it, but we can get that. And so that's the first step. And then once you know your higher purpose, are you living it?
Yeah,
Because if we're not living our higher purpose, then we are going to kind of wonder. We are kind of going to be a little aimless.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So, what would you say about we have so many inner resources that maybe we're not even aware of, and of
Yeah.
course they're not just inner resources. They have to exist in continuity with the entire environment, the smaller environment, the larger environment, and even the larger than that environment, if that makes sense. The
Oh
entire
yeah.
the entire universe, Uh, so what would you say about that? How would you encourage people to find those inner resources?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And it- we have these resources, these tools inside of us. You're so right. I believe that if I am that and you are that, we are that together, right? We're the universe, and so that means that inside of us, deep inside of us, there's this connection to the universal everything, and that's a
Yeah.
pretty amazing tool. And there's different ways we can see that. I ask people, okay, so do you have an intuition? Do you feel intuition? Of course, most people say yes. I feel this feeling of I should do this or shouldn't do that, or and I say, well, that intuition, that's your universal connection. That's the universe speaking to you. That's this oneness of everything that is
Mhm.
trying to get out. And whether you call it the universe, you call it the self with a capital S, you call it the divine or God or nature, right? We call it all these different things, different cultures, different religions, different
Mhm.
spiritual constructs. Uh, so getting in touch with that is a tool, and there's different methods for that. There's meditation, there's yoga, there's your discipline that you practice that I think is beautiful as well, and all this somatic stuff, right?
Yeah.
That is this ritualistic stuff, because all ritual is a bridge from our concrete real world to the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And so to me, that those are amazing tools that we can use.
So, can tell us a little bit about your Kishar community, and is there a difference between omnist and universalist?
I call myself an omnist and a universalist. Essentially, they're very similar terms. It basically means I respect the validity of all spiritual constructs, all religions and philosophies. Like basically, whatever you want to believe, that's for you. That's a good thing, because we all have this fierce individual spiritual path we're walking. But I feel like we can walk that path together. And we can be a Hindu and a Christian and a Taoist and all these things, and we and an atheist, and we can still walk together and ask great questions and find great answers together. And that's the beauty of open-minded discussion about spirituality. It can be this fierce, personal, and personally empowered individualistic thing, but it can also be this community thing. And for me, that's kind of what Kishar was about, is bringing people together so that they, can have a sense of community. They can have a sense of grounded and centeredness to their spiritual journey. And if they're searching and they say, I don't know what my spirituality is, we don't tell you, here's what it should be. We say, here's options. You
Yeah.
decide what resonates with you. And then we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. I have even looked for things like that locally, so that you could actually see people face to face, and I can't
Yeah.
find anything like that because there's always some dogma
Right.
that sours it.
Yeah, and that's for me. I love that you say that word, because that's what we try to avoid. That's what I try to avoid. I try to avoid dogma. And I was raised Southern Baptist and totally hated it. And I tell people, as an omnist or universalist that believes in everything now, I feel more Christian today than I ever did in
Yeah,
the Christian church, because
yeah,
of the dogma's not there, right? I can appreciate mystic Christianity, uh mystic Abrahamic faith, and I can also appreciate Buddhism and Hinduism and see that they're all connected. We're all saying the same thing, right?
what I like about that, among other things, is that it leaves room for not knowing.
Yes. Yeah, the question
Yeah,
mark, the why. Yeah,
yeah, I don't know
absolutely.
everything.
Yeah,
Whereas
I love that. Yeah.
dogma is always, yeah, but I know this, and you better, yeah,
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 exactly. And that's our mission, is to eliminate dogma in as complete a way as we can. And every community's got to have some form of moderation, and there's got to be some boundary so we're not anarchists. But
sure.
short of being anarchy, we don't have any real dogmatic substance at all.
But when you're talking to a person about their purpose, it's their purpose,
Yeah, absolutely.
but it is a
Hun-
purpose. And in that, there is hope.
yes. Yeah, there's And that's the thing. There's this, whether you're looking at religion or spirituality, you look at popular culture, it's all about light and the dark. There's always light in the dark. I mean, whether it's Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or whatever, I mean, there's always finding that light in the darkness. It will sustain you. It will keep you safe. It will show you the way. And I think that I believe we're the balance of the universe. We are walking that balance, and we have that conscious, willful decision and choice to say, am I going to focus my attention on the dark, or am I going to focus my attention on the light? You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see personally us walking through the universe.
So you also have a site where you do book reviews, like almost once a week, I think. Is it once a week?
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel called Peace on Your Journey, and we do book reviews every Wednesday, and every Sunday we have a video that's just a spiritual discussion, kind of like you and I are having a little bit. Um, so we have two videos a week, and one of them every Wednesday is a book review. Absolutely.
I thought that your review of Katie Byron and her method
Mm.
was very well thought out, very well
Oh,
articulated. Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
I was a little nervous because I didn't want to make all the Byron Katie people upset, but I felt like I had some things that I needed to say about it. And I try to be non-judgmental and practice non-judgment, but sometimes I think we have to tell people what our opinion is, you know?
Yeah, I didn't find that judgmental so much as one of the questions, the first one of those questions, do you absolutely know it's true? Well,
Right.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
no, just
Yeah.
a question. I didn't think that
Yeah.
was judgmental.
Yeah. It definitely, there's something about it that definitely, I think, probably bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. But all those book reviews, so that's your YouTube channel. Could you tell people what that is?
Yeah, I wanted, we have our community side and side, but I wanted a place where there would be very public, very free, open information where people could come and find their way if they needed to, have information to inform their own personal spiritual practice and journey where uh like you decide. And I want to give people resources to do that. I thought books, I think I read 60 books in 4 months after my kind of awakening or whatever. So I wanted to be able to share that what I'd read. I take tons of notes, and I want to be able to share that with people. And then I just wanted to be able on the Sunday with the journey, kind of our journey episodes. I wanted to be able to just tell people, here's my thoughts on X, Y, or Z. What do you think about it? How does that inform your practice? How does that uh, sound to you? So that's we wanted something that was this kind of open, helpful thing for people.
And so, how do they find that YouTube channel?
It's called Peace on Your Journey. So it's at Peace on Your Journey. You can type Peace on Your Journey in YouTube. It'll probably come up. You could type
Yeah,
Peace on Your Journey Kishar. It'll come up.
yeah. How many book reviews have you done now?
I think, we've been making 2 videos a week, and I think this week is our 23rd week. So we're up to about 44, 46 videos now is where
So,
we're at.
so do you read constantly?
I I read a bunch in a really short period of time, and now I'm trying to read more. I got away from it for a while because we had to do some technical stuff and got busy founding our online spiritual community. But I still am reading, and my goal is to read a book a week so that I have a book a week to that I can. I have some extra stuff built up for the next 30 weeks or whatever. But I need to be reading a book a week so I don't catch up with myself.
Uh, wow, that's a commitment.
Yeah, it really is. I rotate from Hinduism to Buddhism to the Abrahamic faith to self-help and philosophy, and I try to read diverse stuff from different races and different genders, and that way I'm trying to get this like world perspective on what people think philosophy, religion, spirituality, self-help is to them. So I'm trying to be informed and educated so that I can have better conversations with people like you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, so your experience of reading a book a week, that's a commitment. It's a job kind of.
Yeah.
Um, Do you find most of that is very informative for you? Very, does it bring life to you?
It fills me up for sure. I love that question. I read physical books now, and I I have an app on my phone where I can point it at the book and save like a paragraph of text and save a quote. I can also go into my phone and on a separate side of the app, I can write my own thoughts about a section and say, here's what I think. And so it's a process for me. It's like I'm going to like this spiritual school. Uh, and so it's a whole thing. And I take notes and I'm always writing. So it helps me see this interconnectedness of humankind, that very universal thing that like I said, we're all saying the same thing. And I can see that as I'm reading. So it's
Yeah,
kind of this beautiful thing.
yeah. There's a time in my life, and I think with most people, they don't even investigate other thought other than what exists in their culture and their life. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to expand our worldview.
Yeah. So the Kishar community, I know you wanted that to be small relatively, because even if you have a pretty good thing you're putting out, if it gets too big, it I think it loses some of its
Yeah. I want it to be small
sensibility.
enough. I want it to be small enough to be safe and useful and helpful and where people know each other. And I also want it to be big enough that we reach a critical mass where people are talking to each other a lot and it's a community thing. So yeah, we're still growing, and I think we still have a lot of room to grow. And then I think at some point we'll have plenty of people and say, "Hey, this is enough," and we can stop there. We're a nonprofit, so we're not driven um, by money. We don't take salary, so it's a trying to give back to the world situation.
So about how many people do you have in the community?
I'd say right now we have probably 50 people in the community so far.
50. Okay, yeah.
Uh, Yeah, and we're, like I said, we're growing, and it's a, where as we kind of find our audience and get the message out and whatnot, it's growing bit by bit, which is a good thing.
So a lot of groups like that um, grow up to a certain number, and then they don't get much participation. How do you encourage participation? Do you?
That is, as a content creator, as a community member and creator, it's about we have daily prompts for discussion. We have like we'll have a monthly theme of like gratitude or purpose or dharma, and then we'll have kind of like a sub theme per week, and we'll have prompts where, hey, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? We have meditation daily prompts and affirmations, and also intentional movement, like are you moving today, like are you walking or running, or stuff like that, just like kind of quote images that are like, hey, here's things to remember and think about. Journaling prompts, because I think journaling can be really cathartic. And and so it's our job as kind of moderators and creators and community founders to be able to go out and foster that communication, that conversation.
How did you invite people into the group so that
That
you?
has been
Yeah,
Finding an audience has been part of the difficult of starting something, right? It's you got to go find people. And
yeah.
uh I've been on a lot of podcasts. That's been part of it, is just being a guest on podcasts and telling our story, of my wife and I, her co-founders, along with another friend of ours who lives in the Balkans. And uh, that's been the main method. Friends and family, social media, things like that, word of mouth. So it's been kind of a bit by bit. We also have links to it from our YouTube, so we'll probably get some people, trickling in from that as well.
Do you qualify them at all, or you just invite them to join?
There's no there people are not there's no questions to qualify them before they join. All we ask is when people join that they're open-minded and friendly and kind. That's really
Yes, yeah.
our only rules. But no, we don't have any exclusionary questions that we vet people with before we admit at
So
all.
you have that problem to discuss each week, and if you rotate those around, you have different people probably. Maybe you have somebody that participates all the time, and maybe you have somebody that just participates when you get to a problem they're interested in.
Yeah, we have a few people that that comment quite a bit every day, and then we have people that kind of pop in here and there, like every so often when something interests them.
Yeah,
I find that a lot of people, they just want to watch, they just want to lurk, and that's good. That's okay. It's
yeah,
fine for people to just observe and I have some experience running a community before. I used to run an online gaming community, which is very different from this, but uh I do have some experience in like managing people and knowing how people kind of operate and stuff. So I think that's my counterintelligence background helps because my part of my job was to understanding how to communicate with people.
yeah. So you have a YouTube channel and you have uh, a community.
Mhm.
And do you have a podcast also?
Our YouTube channel basically is our podcast. So we take the audio from our YouTube videos and we publish that as a podcast on all the major providers. We're on iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
pretty much wherever anybody gets their podcast, they can also get our content. And some people do prefer to listen to it.
yeah. You're in the car or something. That's a good way
Yeah.
to do that. Um, so this is pretty much what you do full time now.
Yeah, this is my life. I feel good that I'm living my purpose every day, my higher purpose, my dharma,
Yeah.
and yeah, this is what I do. This is my thing.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything that you would like the audience to be left with?
Our community also offers individual spiritual guidance and coaching for people that need it, and uh, but from a bigger perspective, I would say we have more time than we think. Uh,
Hmm.
so slow things down and don't chase perfection because we're maybe perfect inside, but this world that we're walking through is never going to be perfect.
No,
And love yourself. I think self-love is the biggest thing that I would tell people is love yourself and be there for yourself.
I really, I really identify with that. It must be the biggest need that we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, John, I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the same, Sky. And I really appreciate your podcast and the messages you're putting out in the world. It's something that, people need to hear. So thank you very so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, I had no real reason for starting my podcast other than that it just seemed like I wanted to put something good out into the world. So
That's what we
thank you.
need. That's how we change the world, right?
Yeah.